The void before the first name. Before the first cry, there was silence. Not the usual silence of the early morning or of empty rooms, but a silence beyond time. Shapeless, colorless. There, in the place where everything begins and everything ends, something, or someone, was waiting. Waiting for a name, for a body, for a story. But in that moment, there was no childhood yet. No mother. No guilt, no trauma, no affection or longing. There was only a void full of intention. Have you ever wondered why you were born where you were born? Why you carry that last name? Why you have this kind of body, this skin, this voice? Why that mother and not another? Why that father, present or absent, with those eyes, that energy? Most people don't ask. Most just live, survive, repeat. But some, they feel. They feel that something doesn't quite fit. As if life were a rehearsed script, one the soul already knew. These people walk through the world with a subtle sense of strangeness. They look at their parents and sometimes think, I've seen you before. Or worse, you owe me something you don't even know about. Why does it hurt so much, if it's just blood? It's not just blood. It never was. Before the first breath, there was a meeting. You were there, but not like you are now. You were pure awareness, a spark that could see beyond the veils. And it was there that the most important decision of your existence was made. It wasn't by chance. It wasn't punishment. It wasn't luck. It was a choice. A mysterious choice. A sacred choice. A forgotten choice. Because behind the apparent injustice of being born where you were, there is an old alignment, an ancestral agreement, a choreographed dance between souls. Yes, there is pain. Yes, there is abandonment, violence, silence. But there is also redemption. There is reunion. There is healing. Because every birth is a second chance. And every family is either a mirror or it's an altar. But before all of that, there was the void, a weightless place where you floated light as cosmic dust. And it was there that you heard the question, a question that still echoes deep inside your being. Are you ready to remember? But be careful. Not every memory returns with sweetness. Some come as loss. Others as a nameless longing. Still others as anger without explanation. That's the price of forgetting. Because at birth, you erased everything. Or almost everything. And what if I told you that what you call destiny was a contract you yourself signed? And in that contract were the names of those you now call family. But not everyone involved accepted it willingly. Because what comes next, not every soul has the courage to face. The Council of Souls. There is a place untouched by time, where yesterday and tomorrow are the same. There, days don't pass, they vibrate, and souls don't grow old, they remember. This place has no name. It's not on any map. It cannot be seen with the eyes of the body, but it can be felt when the heart goes quiet. Some call it the between lives, others the spirit field. But the elders, the ones who know, whisper. The council. Imagine a room made of liquid light. Colors that don't exist on earth. Sounds that neither hurt nor distract. Sounds that embrace. In this suspended space, consciousnesses gather. They do not speak. They vibrate. Each soul is a melody. And together, they compose a score that narrates the next act. It is there that destinies are drawn, not as punishments or rewards, but rather as choices. You were there, with eyes of light, no name, no fear. And for the last time before forgetting everything, you knew exactly who you were. Before you, possibilities appeared. Lives, scenarios, encounters. You could be born in peace, but would grow little. You could be born in love, but might never know what it means to lose. And then you saw her, that woman, the one who would become your mother, maybe a soul you had known before, or perhaps a new ally in the theater of rebirth. Next to her, a man, your father. His vibration made you tremble. It carried weight. It carried history. But it also held a key that would unlock hidden pain inside you. The council observes. It does not judge. It does not impose. It simply illuminates. They show the karmas. They show the possible lessons. They show who you could become if you're brave enough to forget and remember later. You hear other souls, guardians, mentors. Some beg you to wait. You're not ready. This family is too hard. This life might break you. Others remain silent because they know true growth doesn't happen in comfort. It happens in the crossing. And then you decide. You will choose that woman, that broken soul, that strong soul. She will be the womb through which you pass. And that man, with his absences, with his ghosts, with his flaws, he will be the mirror that wounds you and sets you free. You sign, with energy, with intention, with love, a contract that won't be remembered, but will be lived. And the council vibrates in silence. Another brave soul has chosen to descend. Not every soul involved accepts right away. Some resist. Others disappear. And there are times when promises are broken even before birth. Because choosing your journey also means accepting that not everything will go as planned. And sometimes, even those who promise to love you arrive and forget too. But before forgetting, you did something even deeper. You saw everything that would come, every pain, every sacrifice. And even then, with your eyes glowing, you said yes. Act before birth. Before diving into the flesh, you looked at everything. With the eyes of the soul, eyes that do not blink. You saw childhood, the empty chairs at the table, the hugs that would never come, the silent screams behind closed doors. You saw your mother's eyes, too tired to understand you. You saw your father leaving before he ever taught you how to stay. You saw the dark room where you would cry alone, and the forced smile that would hide your pain. You saw it all, and you did not retreat. In the soul's realm, nothing is hidden. There, illusion doesn't exist. Everything vibrates with truth. Scenarios are painted with emotion. Future experiences are felt before they happen. And you felt them. You felt betrayal. You felt abandonment. You felt hunger, not just for food, but for affection. You felt the cold touch of an absent mother, and the weight of a father's gaze who never truly saw you. You felt the fear of rejection, the desperation of wanting to be loved, the desire to disappear. And still, you stayed. You didn't turn away. You didn't ask for a new life, nor a second chance. You accepted this one, because there, in that sacred vision, you also saw something else. You saw reunions, hands that would lift you in the midst of pain, words from strangers that would heal ancient wounds. You saw the books you would find, as if written by your own hand before forgetting. You saw a path of return, even if wrapped in mist. And more than anything, you saw who you would become, a strong soul, torn but not destroyed, fragmented but awake, tired but full of wisdom. You saw yourself standing, even after everything. And that's when you understood. You did not come to suffer. You came to remember. That was when you reached out your hand. With a silent gesture, you sealed the vows with those souls. the woman who would be your mother, the man who would be your father, maybe a brother, a grandmother, an abuser. Each one accepted the role, like actors in an ancient play, repeating roles with variations, but all aware of the script, at least in that moment, because the veil of incarnation covers everyone. And many, once born, forget. They stray, they fall asleep, they wound. But you knew that even if they hurt you, it would awaken something inside. Something no comfort could ever awaken. With one last look at the council, you took a deep breath. And then you jumped. You dove into time, into weight, into flesh, into limits. And in that instant, the pact faded from your mind. But not from your heart. It remained there, written in your cells, in your gestures, in your silences, in the encounters that give you chills, in the wounds that never quite leave. The body forgets, but the soul never does. You were born, fragile, nameless once again. Life began, but the memory remained hidden. And that is why sometimes you feel, without knowing why, without knowing where it comes from, as if some part of you knows something you haven't yet been able to put into words. Because birth is not just the beginning of life, it is the beginning of the great amnesia. And now, it's time to remember what the body keeps trying to forget. The amnesia of the soul. Birth seems simple. A body coming out of another body. A cry. A cut. A name. But what almost no one notices is what gets lost in that exact moment. In the crossing from the invisible to the physical world, something is left behind. It's not just the memory of past lives, not only the familiar faces. It's the forgetting of who you truly are. You were born, but you forgot that you chose to be born, forgot the plan, forgot the reason why, and in its place was left only the feeling of being lost, of being out of place, of carrying an absence with no name. The soul arrives whole, but the body is too small to hold it all. So it fragments. The essence begins to hide in pieces, a little in the mother's gaze, another in the hug that never came, another still in the silence of the room. We grow up not knowing exactly what we're looking for. We call it affection, attention, belonging, but in truth, we're trying to remember. Remember who we were. Remember what we came here to do. Remember why it hurts. And life, like a living riddle, throws us clues. Sometimes in a scent, in the sound of a song that makes us cry without knowing why. In a place we visit for the first time, but already know. Or in the eyes of someone we've never met, but already love. A child looks at their parents with confusion. They feel familiar, but something is missing, as if they too forgot something important, as if they too made promises and erased them all. Childhood becomes a theater of clues, dreams that seem like messages, drawings that hide symbols, fears without cause, words the child says and adults ignore. It's the soul trying to emerge, trying to wake up, but the world teaches you quickly to forget, to stay quiet, to obey, to fit in. And the more we try to adapt, the more we drift away from our essence. The amnesia of the soul isn't complete. It's intermittent. It leaks. It pulses in the in-between lines. Because no matter how deep we bury who we are, something always escapes. Maybe that's why certain pains affect us more than they should. Maybe that's why we miss things we've never lived. And that formless longing, that silent absence, is the echo of remembrance. The memory that you've been here before, that this isn't your first time, that this body is not your true home, but it is the path back. The body doesn't store memories in words. It stores them in symptoms, in gut feelings, in shivers. The soul speaks in sensory codes. And when you begin to listen, everything changes. Because there are pains that don't come from the present. They come from old contracts, from unfinished lessons, from forgotten promises. And it is through those pains that the bonds begin to reveal themselves. Bonds that hurt and heal. Bonds that return life after life to help us remember. Bonds that hurt, bonds that heal. Not every bond was made to embrace. Some squeeze. They burn. They leave marks. And yet we can't cut them. There's something that holds us. Something beyond affection, beyond biology, beyond logic. Have you ever tried to walk away from someone, and still that person keeps hurting you from within? As if there were an invisible thread connecting hearts. Even when bodies are far apart, these bonds are not new. They are ancient as your soul. They are ties that stretch across lifetimes. Cycles that repeat until something awakens, until healing happens. Sometimes, the one who hurts you most today was someone you hurt before, or someone who swore to protect you and failed, or someone who promised to love you and got lost. And you both returned, once again, to try again, to remember what was forgotten, to forgive what still hurts. Imagine a subtle web woven with threads of light. Each thread is an emotional connection. Love, anger, guilt, longing. The more intense the emotion, the thicker the thread. Some are golden, others dark, but all carry a purpose: to teach. And the deepest core of this web is the family. That's why we feel guilt even when we shouldn't. That's why we love those who hurt us. That's why we forgive when the world screams that we should hate. The body suffers, but the soul remembers. Remembers the contracts. Remembers the vows. Remembers the promise made in the silence of the council. I will return with you, even if it's hard, even if pain pulls us apart. I will return so we can be free. Don't confuse pain with punishment, nor a bond with a prison. Sometimes, pain is the only path the soul has to wake up, and the bond is the road back to yourself. When you embrace the one who hurt you, not out of submission, but out of transcendence, you break centuries-old cycles. You heal more than just yourself. You heal entire branches of your spiritual lineage. It's hard, it's unfair, it's confusing, but it's also divine. There are bonds that are like scars. They ache when the weather changes, but they prove you survived. And there are bonds that, even when undone here, continue on the other side. Because no matter what happened between you and someone, if there was learning, there is continuity. Deep down, every meaningful relationship is a mirror. It reveals parts of you that you hide, or that you forgot, or that you need to transform. And that's where the miracle lives. The day you look at the one who hurt you most, and instead of hate, you feel compassion. Instead of vengeance, you feel freedom. That is the moment the thread dissolves, and the soul frees. But among all these threads, there is one that never breaks. Even in the farthest reincarnations, even in the deepest silences, it's the thread of the original promise. The one you made with the first soul you ever recognized beyond the veil. And what if I told you that this soul was your daughter, but today, she's the one you call mother? The soul of your mother was once your daughter. You look at her and see a woman, tired maybe, fragile, full of contradictions. with her silences, her scoldings, her incomplete gestures. She gave you life, or so they say. But deep down, sometimes, you feel it was the other way around. As if, somehow, you were here for her. As if it was you who chose her. And you wouldn't be wrong. The soul's sense of time isn't a straight line. It's cyclical. It spins like a spiral, weaving past and future into a sacred dance. Roles change. Voices switch places. And the one who was once a child can become a parent. The one who was your mother may have been your daughter. You once carried in your arms the same soul who now carried you in her womb. You once calmed her fears, protected her dreams, saw her cry in the dark, and held her hand. And now the roles have reversed, because there is a kind of love that goes beyond biology. A love of souls, of cycles, of mission. Many times, this mother who feels so different to you, so distant, is a soul you've loved for millennia, and with whom you've made and remade agreements, life after life. Maybe in another time, she was your daughter, and you promised to guide her, promised to stay close, even if it meant being born fragile, dependent on her, even if it cost you your freedom for a while. Because soul love doesn't seek control. It seeks growth. That's why some children seem more mature than their parents. They carry a silent wisdom in their eyes, as if they're observing everything with an ancestral calm. And why is it that some mothers feel an unexplainable love? A bond so strong with that baby, who seems older than she is. It's the recognition without words, the reunion behind the veils. Sometimes, that love becomes conflict. Two ancient souls, with unfinished stories, old wounds unresolved, fears that repeat. Does she demand too much from you? Maybe because she already lost you once. Do you feel the need to save her? Maybe because you've seen her fall before. These dynamics don't come from nowhere. They have deep roots, roots that reach through time. You are not with this family by chance. You weren't dropped into this body as a victim of fate. You are exactly where your soul chose to be. Even if you don't understand it yet, even if it hurts, even if it seems unfair. And she, this woman, is also trying to remember. Sometimes her love fails. It becomes harsh, distant, confusing. But inside her, there is a spark that recognizes yours. She might not know how to explain it, but she feels it. And what about your father? Maybe you judge him. Maybe you fear him. Or maybe you never even met him. But there's something you haven't seen yet. What if the father you reject was the one who once saved your soul in another life? What if what you call abandonment is actually a disguised rescue? The karmic mirror of family. You were born onto a sacred stage, the stage of your healing. But this stage doesn't have soft lights, no applause. It has slamming doors. It has voices that scream. It has silences that cut. Your family is not the backdrop of your downfall. It is the mirror of your soul. And mirrors don't always show what we want to see. Have you noticed? What wounds you the most in others is what most needs to be seen in yourself. And in family, that truth is more intense, more raw, more real, because they know your cracks, and you should know theirs. But instead of compassion, there comes judgment, there comes guilt, there comes shame, as if everyone were trying to hide their own pain by blaming the other for bleeding. The absent father reflects your need for presence. The controlling mother reveals your fear of letting go. The aggressive brother shows your repressed anger. The silent sister exposes your escape. Each one, a reflection. Each behavior, an invitation. a call to look within, and you resist, because seeing pain in the other is easier than seeing it in yourself, because pointing fingers feels like protection, but only delays the healing. Imagine an old mirror, stained, cracked. You look into it and don't recognize who you are. It seems distorted, broken, but it's not you who is broken. It's the mirror, and it was shattered by old stories. Stories that didn't start in this life. Stories that are vibrating in the spaces between the walls of your home. Sometimes, you repeat exactly what you swore you'd never do. You yell like your father. You run like your mother. You judge as you were judged. And it eats at you, because you see yourself in the other. And you don't like what you see. But it's right there that the cycle can be broken. Not by denial, but by recognition. Because healing doesn't come by changing the other. It comes by seeing yourself with truth. The soul chooses the family not to feel comfort, but to expose wounds. And with courage to heal them. Every difficult relationship is a karmic mirror. And every mirror is a doorway. But here's something important. Not all mirrors are meant to last forever. Some exist only until you say, I see, I accept, I forgive. And when that happens, the reflection dissolves. The pattern shatters, and the cycle ends. But then comes a moment when the mirror fully breaks. And in the middle of the shards, you see something unexpected. Not pain, not blame, but reunion. Reunion with something ancient, with someone who seems to have returned. From another time, another body, another plane, and you begin to feel as if you've known this person before, as if they are returning through dreams and silences. The reunion in dreams and silences. It's not just memories that cross lifetimes. They're also encounters. Encounters that can't be explained, that defy logic, that don't obey time. You look at someone and you feel. You feel it in your body. You feel it in your soul. As if, finally, something had returned. But before that encounter becomes physical, it happens in the invisible, in dreams, in silences, in the details. It's that strange dream, but familiar. You walk through a house you've never seen, but know every corner. You speak with someone whose face is blurred, but whose presence is unforgettable. You wake up with your heart tight, or full, as if you had found something sacred again. And you have. Many times, souls prepare on the subtle plane before meeting again here. They visit each other in the astral. They send signs through synchronicities. They show up in the corner of your mind and don't leave. You hear a song and cry without knowing why. You see the same name over and over in a single day. You feel someone is coming even if you don't know who. These are soul codes. Calls for reunion. These souls don't always return as romantic partners. Sometimes they return as children, as friends, as teachers, or as strangers who say exactly what you needed to hear, and then vanish. But when they arrive, something inside you aligns. It's as if an invisible piece falls into place, and the longing feels lighter. These reunions aren't accidents. They're ancient agreements being fulfilled. They're answers to promises made before birth. I'll find you again. Even if it's on the other side of the world. Even if in another body. Even if I have to forget, just to remember again. And so it is. There is a kind of silence that speaks. A silence between two people who look at each other and don't need to say a word. Have you ever felt that? A moment of recognition with no explanation. A shiver. A warmth in the chest. A tear that comes without sadness. It's the soul saying, You're back. I'm back. We're here again. These reunions are not just beautiful, they are healing. They remind us of who we are. They break the illusion of isolation, and they return us to the heart. And sometimes, the deepest reunion is not with the other, it's with yourself. When, after years of adapting, forgetting, hurting, you look in the mirror and finally recognize the soul behind the eyes. That's the moment when the cycle becomes a spiral, when karma becomes wisdom, when the void becomes home. But there is still a pain that pulses, a question that lingers. Why so much suffering? Why these difficult families, these losses, these distances? And the answer lies within the pain, within the mission it carries, within the freedom it offers. Because every family wound carries a hidden calling. And when you understand that calling, the soul is set free. The hidden mission behind the pain. Every pain carries a secret, and every difficult family hides a mission. But it takes courage to look beyond what you feel, beyond the hurt, beyond the abandonment, beyond the guilt. You must go deeper, to where the pain was born, to the place where the soul committed to heal what was never healed. You didn't come here to continue the cycle. You came to break it. You are the link that stops the repetition. What you suffered the most is exactly what you came to transform. What you lacked the most is what you came to learn to give. And as unfair as it may seem, the soul understands that pain is only the invitation. The portal. Yes, it was hard. Yes, you wanted to be loved differently. Yes, they made mistakes. And so did you. But behind all of this, there is something else. Something silent. Something ancient. Something sacred. An invisible mission that could only be activated after the wound. Because from pain comes the gift. From abandonment comes empathy. From humiliation comes compassion. From silence comes deep listening. Your family was your soul's training ground. And each character who hurt you was a catalyst. Not for tragedy, but for transformation. They may not even be aware of it. They may not have evolved at all. But the impact they had on you was the starting point for your awakening. You can keep blaming them, or you can embrace your mission and use it as a beacon. Imagine an energetic prison. It has no bars, but it has patterns. Patterns that repeat. Absent fathers, wounded mothers, children who inherit the pain. But when you see it clearly, when you realize you're repeating something that was never yours, something breaks. And in that moment, you stop reacting and begin healing. That is true liberation. It's not about forgetting. It's about understanding. It's about transmuting. You stop being the victim of your story and become the author of the next chapter. It's not about pretending it didn't hurt. It's about letting the pain teach, instead of letting it rule. When the soul understands why it chose to go through all of it, the heart opens. And in that opening, something awakens. An ancient memory, the deep love, a light that had been sleeping. You are not here by chance. You are here because you accepted the mission, because you trusted that you could endure and transform. And now, something is happening. You feel it, inside, silent, unexplainable, as if you were about to return home, as if the soul were remembering who it has always been. And it is in this moment of clarity that the forgotten love begins to rise. Not a human, conditional, fragile love, but the love you chose before you were born. Love you chose before you were born, before the first word, before the body, before time. You were only love. Not the kind of love that demands, Not the kind that hurts, that lacks, that expects, but the original love. The love that watches without judgment. The love that embraces without needing to understand. It was in that state that you made your choice. You were not pushed into this life. You were not punished. You were not forgotten by God. You volunteered. You saw the family you would be born into. You saw the traumas. You saw the misalignments. You saw the lack of affection. You saw the pain etched into the lines of time. And still you said, "I'll go." You saw everything that could go wrong, but you felt that it was there your soul would bloom, that it was on that arid soil, that love would need to rise. And you came, not out of weakness, but out of courage. The love you chose before you were born still lives inside you, even if it was muffled by screams, rejected by gestures, forgotten through survival. It didn't die. It only slept. And now it is awakening. Every memory that resurfaces, every forgiveness you offer, every tear that falls not from pain, but from release, is love returning. This love doesn't depend on others changing. It doesn't depend on your mother understanding you, or your father coming back, or your family accepting you. This love is freedom. It's when you look at everything you lived and finally say, "Thank you." Not because it was easy, but because now it makes sense. You see that everything that shaped you was serving something greater, and even the scars now shine as marks of passage. The soul smiles. It knew you would remember. It knew you would doubt, would complain, would suffer, but it also knew that one day you would awaken, and that day has come. Now you have the most powerful choice of all, to keep repeating or to live with awareness, to honor the pain you endured by turning it into wisdom, and to remember every day that you are not here by accident. Every word, every relationship, every step is part of a dance that began long before your first cry. The soul does not forget, and even if the world tries to silence it, even if the days try to harden it, there is something inside you that remains pure, radiant. That something is the love you chose, the love that chose you. The soul watches your life from above. It sees the encounters, the pains, the lessons, and it smiles. There is no more guilt. No more weight, only gratitude. You didn't come here to be punished, but to remember. The family you chose was the portal for your soul to grow. Now that you know, how do you wish to continue your story?